God Valley is not over. It is coming back. Not as a flashback, not as history, but as the final structure of One Piece itself. Because the same conflict is being rebuilt right in front of us, with the same roles, the same wills, and the same ideological collision. And this time, it won't be Roger, Garp, and Rocks. It will be Luffy, Koby, and Blackbeard. And Oda has been setting this up for years, whether people want to see it or not. Luffy carries Roger's will, Koby carries Garp's will, and Blackbeard is the biological son of Rocks. But here's the part most people completely misunderstand. Teach is not Rocks 2.0. He is worse. Because Rocks wanted to tear the world down, while Teach wants to own it. Rocks represented chaos, while Teach represents control. Rocks opposed the system, while Teach wants to become it. And that inversion is exactly why he is the final ideological enemy of One Piece. And before anyone says it, yes, Koby belongs here. Because One Piece has never been about raw strength first. It has always been about will. And Koby has one of the strongest wills in the entire series, which is exactly why Oda placed him in the chapter 1121 spread, among the people who could potentially reach the One Piece itself. And Oda does not do things like that accidentally. He does it because he is planting future payoffs. And it gets worse, because Koby is not just connected to Luffy, he is deeply connected to Blackbeard. They were allies at Rocky Port. Teach directly credited him for his victory. He kidnapped him on Amazon Lily using the same plan he once had for Luffy. Koby watched him destroy Marineford, powerless to stop it. And now, Blackbeard holds Garp, which turns this from theory into inevitability. Because Koby's entire life is about preventing another ace, and Oda does not write that kind of personal setup without a massive payoff. This is not coincidence. This is structure. And no, I am not saying Koby lands the final blow. That has to be Luffy, always. But a God Valley-style clash, Luffy and Koby versus Blackbeard, freedom and justice versus domination and ownership, that is absolutely on the table. Because One Piece does not repeat, it rhymes. And Oda has been telling the same story from different angles for over 2 decades. And now we need to talk about Gear 5. Because Gear 5 is not just power. It is ideology. It is mockery. It is rebellion made physical. Because Luffy does not destroy systems. He humiliates them. He turns them into jokes. He strips them of meaning. And if the Abyssal Covenant is built on fear, permanence, and ownership, then the worst possible counter to it is not strength, it is absurdity. Imagine this. Instead of breaking the Abyss Mark, instead of sealing it, instead of purifying it, Luffy just paints over it. Not with something divine, not with something complex, but with the dumbest symbol he knows. An X. The mark of Nakama. The same X the Straw Hats used. The same X the Iron Giant had 900 years ago. The same X that might trace back to Joy Boy himself. And suddenly, an enemy becomes an ally. Not through domination, not through force, but through meaning. And that is the most Luffy solution imaginable. And this is not even new, because One Piece has been telling us for years that imagination is a real force, not a metaphor. Which brings us to Miss Golden Week, a character most people dismissed as a joke, even though she could literally overwrite emotions, override loyalty, override purpose. And she did it without a devil fruit, which means contracts are not absolute, influence is not eternal, and Imu's power is not untouchable. It is conditional. And once you realize that, everything changes. Because if intent can be overwritten, then slavery is not permanent. If loyalty can be rewritten, then domination is fragile. And if meaning can be reinterpreted, then every system can collapse. And Luffy is the embodiment of reinterpretation. He doesn't accept what things are supposed to mean. He decides what they mean. And that's why the cloud symbolism matters, because Oda never draws randomly. White means liberation. Black means corruption. Luffy has white clouds. Yamato has white clouds. Lucci has black clouds. The Gorosei have black clouds. But Killingham has white. And that is not accidental. That is a question mark. That is Oda telling us that not everyone under Imu is evil by choice. Some are overwritten. Some are bound. Some are trapped. Which means the final saga is not just a war. It is a mass liberation. And that's why Blackbeard has to lose ideologically, not physically. Because he believes freedom is something you take, while Luffy believes freedom is something you protect. And when those two worldviews collide, that is not a fight. That is a verdict. And this is where Imu stops being a mystery and starts becoming a system. Because Imu's real power is not strength, it is permanence. It is the ability to overwrite identity, to freeze people in place, to remove choice, to turn living beings into functions. And that is exactly what the Abyssal Covenant represents. Not power, not immortality, but ownership. Permanent ownership. The final form of slavery, where even your will is no longer yours. That's why this is not just about pirates and marines. It's about what freedom actually means in One Piece. Because Luffy doesn't just want to be free. He wants everyone else to be free too, even if they don't ask for it, even if they resist it, even if they don't understand it. And that is terrifying to a world built on control. And that's why Gear 5 is not just a transformation. It is a declaration of war on reality itself. Because Gear 5 does not obey logic. It does not obey fear. It does not obey hierarchy. It turns rules into toys and systems into jokes. And that is exactly why it is the perfect counter to Imu. Because Imu needs permanence, and Gear 5 represents impermanence. If the Abyss Mark says, "You belong to me forever," then Gear 5 says, "Nothing lasts forever." And that contradiction alone is lethal. And this is why I don't believe the Abyss will be broken through strength. Because One Piece has never solved its biggest problems with raw force. It solves them with meaning, with symbols, with reinterpretation. And that's why the X matters so much. Because the X is not just a mark of friendship. It is a rejection of ownership. It is the symbol of choosing each other instead of being owned by something else. And once you see it that way, you realize that Luffy doesn't free people by defeating their enemies. He frees them by changing what they believe is possible. Which brings us back to Koby. Because Koby is not just a marine. He is a contradiction. He is living proof that justice can exist without tyranny, that responsibility can exist without corruption, that power can exist without domination. And that is exactly why he scares the world government more than most pirates ever could. Koby is not dangerous because of how hard he punches. He is dangerous because of what he proves. He proves that the system is optional. And that is unforgivable. And now put him next to Luffy, not as a subordinate, not as a rival, but as an ideological ally. And suddenly, you don't have a pirate and a marine. You have two people who refuse to kneel, who refuse to rule, who refuse to obey. And now put Blackbeard in front of them, a man who believes freedom is something you take, not something you protect. And suddenly, this is not a fight. It is a judgment. Because Blackbeard does not want freedom. He wants permission. Permission to do whatever he wants without consequences. And that is the opposite of what Luffy represents. Luffy does not want to do whatever he wants. He wants everyone else to be able to do what they want. And those two ideas cannot coexist. One of them has to die. And that is why Blackbeard cannot win. Not because he is weak, but because he is wrong. And Oda does not end stories with the wrong worldview winning. God Valley was the first time this question was asked. Who decides what freedom means? Who gets to own the world? Who gets to rewrite people? And now, that question is being asked again. Not by Rocks, not by Roger, not by Garp, but by Luffy, Koby, and Blackbeard. And this time, the answer will not be hidden in history. It will be written into the future. And that is what the final saga is really about. Not who becomes Pirate King, but what kind of world that title creates.